Beyond the physical realm lies a truth that few have glimpsed. What happens in those precious moments after life ends? For millennia, humanity has questioned what awaits us in those final breaths as consciousness begins its greatest journey. I come to you today with revelations that many spiritual seekers have uncovered about the sacred transition we call death. The renowned psychic Edgar once described these moments as not an end, but a doorway. A profound insight from a man who accessed the Akashic records while in trance states. The first truth is this: when the heart stops beating, the brain continues its electrical activity. Medical science confirms this, but what science cannot yet fully measure is the expansion of consciousness that occurs precisely 7 minutes after clinical death. In this crucial window, something extraordinary happens. The soul begins to detach from its physical vessel, creating what many near-death experiencers describe as a sensation of floating above their bodies. They report watching medical teams working frantically below, hearing conversations, and noting details they couldn't possibly know from their unconscious state. Why 7 minutes? This number appears repeatedly across spiritual traditions. 7 chakras, 7 heavens, 7 days of creation. This is no coincidence. The universe operates on mathematical precision, and the number 7 represents completion of a cycle. In this case, the completion of physical existence. During these 7 minutes, time as we understand it ceases to exist. What feels like mere moments to those watching can be experienced as hours or even days for the transitioning soul. In this expanded state, many report a complete life review, witnessing not just their actions, but feeling the effects those actions had on others. The veil between worlds grows thin in these sacred minutes. Those who have returned from this threshold describe a tunnel of light appearing approximately 4 minutes after death. This luminous corridor seems to stretch between dimensions, drawing the consciousness forward with a gentle but irresistible pull. What's most fascinating is how consistent these reports remain across cultures, religions, and time periods. A Hindu mystic's description from ancient texts aligns remarkably with modern accounts from secular hospitals. This universal experience transcends cultural conditioning. As the 7th minute approaches, many report encounters with spiritual beings. Sometimes these entities appear as luminous presences, while others recognize departed loved ones waiting to guide them forward. The comfort these beings provide seems to ease the transition, removing fear and replacing it with profound peace. For those who have returned to tell their stories, people who were resuscitated before the 7th minute completed, there is often a reluctance to come back. They describe the experience as one of such complete love and acceptance that returning to physical existence feels limiting by comparison. These testimonies reveal that consciousness doesn't end with the physical body. Instead, it undergoes a transformation, expanding beyond the limitations of brain function into something far more vast. The 7-minute window represents the soul's preparation for this greater existence. What I'm sharing today isn't meant to remove the mystery of death, but to illuminate its profound significance. This knowledge has transformed countless lives, shifting focus from material pursuits to spiritual growth and meaningful connections. As consciousness begins to separate from the physical form, the 7-minute journey unfolds in distinct phases that countless near-death experiencers have documented. Let me guide you through what occurs during this profound transition, moment by moment. The first minute after clinical death initiates what mystics call the great untethering. The silver cord, an energetic connection between body and soul described in ancient texts, begins to loosen. Many who have returned describe a sudden weightlessness, as if gravity no longer applies to their essence. The physical body becomes increasingly irrelevant as awareness expands beyond its former limitations. During the 2nd minute, a profound silence envelops the transitioning soul. The chaos of medical interventions, grieving loved ones, and worldly concerns fades away. This sacred silence isn't empty. It's described as pregnant with potential, vibrating with a harmony beyond physical hearing. Many report this as the moment when the illusion of separation begins to dissolve. The 3rd minute brings what spiritual traditions call the Great Remembering. Suddenly, the soul recalls its true nature beyond the physical identity it has temporarily inhabited. past lives may flash into awareness, not as distant memories, but as simultaneous experiences. The limitations of linear time begin to collapse as the soul recognizes itself as an eternal being having a temporary human experience. In the fourth minute, the consciousness encounters what many traditions describe as the threshold guardians. These spiritual entities appear not as judges, but as compassionate guides. They often manifest in forms recognizable to the individual, sometimes as departed loved ones, spiritual figures from their belief system, or beings of pure light. Their presence serves to ease the transition and orient the soul toward what comes next. The fifth minute brings the phenomenon known as the life panorama. Unlike the fragmented flashbacks portrayed in films, this experience unfolds as a complete, simultaneous viewing of one's entire existence. More remarkably, the soul experiences not just its own perspective, but the impact of its actions on others. Every kindness and every harm is felt directly, creating a perfect understanding of one's life without judgment or punishment. During the sixth minute, many report encountering what mystics call the choice point. Here, some souls describe being presented with the option to return to their physical bodies or continue their journey. Those who choose to return often do so out of love for those they would leave behind or because of unfinished spiritual lessons. This moment appears to exist outside linear time, allowing for deep contemplation despite occurring in what we perceive as mere seconds. The seventh minute marks what ancient texts call the Great Transition. For those who do not return to physical life, this is when the soul fully releases its attachment to the material world. The tunnel of light, reported by so many, expands to encompass the entire field of awareness. The soul moves beyond the intermediary realm into what many traditions describe as higher planes of existence. What's most remarkable about these 7 minutes is how they reconcile the seemingly contradictory accounts from various spiritual traditions. The judgment described in some religions appears to be self-generated through the life review. The heaven or hell of others manifests as states of consciousness, rather than locations. The reincarnation cycle of Eastern traditions becomes understandable as one option among many at the choice point. These 7 minutes represent not an end, but a continuation, a shift from one state of being to another. They reveal that death is not a punishment, but a transformation, a doorway rather than a destination. Most importantly, they suggest that the consciousness that experiences this transition is the same consciousness you possess right now, reading these words. The wisdom gathered from thousands who have glimpsed beyond the veil reveals profound truths about our existence. These insights from the 7-minute journey have the power to transform how we live our lives today. One of the most consistent revelations reported is that our consciousness exists independent of our physical brain. During clinical death, when all brain activity should render awareness impossible, experiencers report heightened perception, crystal clear thinking, and a sense of being more awake than awake. This suggests that our physical brain may function more like a receiver or translator of consciousness rather than its source, similar to how a television receives signals but doesn't create the broadcast itself. This understanding aligns with what ancient wisdom traditions have taught for millennia. The Upanishads speak of Atman, the eternal self, residing within, yet transcending the physical form. Indigenous shamanic traditions describe consciousness as an eternal flame merely housed temporarily in the body. Even quantum physicists now theorize that consciousness may be a fundamental property of the universe, rather than merely an emergent property of neural activity. Another profound revelation comes from the life review that occurs during these 7 minutes. Unlike our earthly perspective, where we judge actions as good or bad based on cultural norms, the life review evaluates experiences based on a single criterion: love. Acts of compassion, kindness, and selflessness create expansive feelings of joy and fulfillment, while actions motivated by fear, greed, or hatred generate a contracted sense of isolation and pain. This universal moral framework transcends religious doctrine. It suggests that the purpose of our earthly existence isn't adherence to specific rules, but rather the cultivation of our capacity to love unconditionally. As one near-death experiencer eloquently stated, "I learned that the currency of the universe isn't money or power, it's love. And we're all either spiritual millionaires or in spiritual poverty based solely on how much love we've given. Perhaps most revolutionary is what these experiences reveal about time. In our physical existence, we perceive time as linear, flowing from past to present to future. But during the 7-minute journey, experiencers report that time reveals itself as an illusion. Past, present, and future exist simultaneously in what mystics call the eternal now. From this perspective, our lives aren't moving towards some distant destination, but are complete, perfect wholes viewed from a limited vantage point. This non-linear nature of time explains how the life review can encompass an entire lifetime despite occurring in minutes. It also illuminates why so many report receiving knowledge that would take lifetimes to convey in words. Information isn't processed sequentially, but absorbed holistically, like downloading an entire library of wisdom in an instant. The emotional transformation that occurs during these 7 minutes is equally profound. Those who have glimpsed beyond report that earthly concerns, status, wealth, appearance, professional achievements suddenly appear trivial. Meanwhile, relationships, acts of kindness, moments of genuine connection, and spiritual growth reveal themselves as profoundly significant. This reprioritization often leads to dramatic life changes for those who return. Many abandon high-stress careers to pursue meaningful work. Others reconcile with estranged family members, recognizing that love matters more than being right. Some dedicate themselves to service, having directly experienced the joy that comes from alleviating others' suffering. These 7 minutes also reveal what mystics call the great illusion of separation. In our earthly existence, we perceive ourselves as separate entities, distinct from other people, nature, and the universe itself. But during the transition, this boundary dissolves. Experiencers report a profound sense of oneness with all existence, recognizing that separation is merely a temporary perspective rather than an ultimate reality. This understanding of our fundamental interconnectedness mirrors the teachings of spiritual leaders throughout history. It's what Jesus referred to when speaking of the kingdom of heaven within, what Buddha realized under the Bodhi tree, and what indigenous wisdom keepers have preserved in their understanding of our relationship with all life. It suggests that enlightenment isn't gaining something new, but rather recognizing what has always been true, our essential unity with all that is. The knowledge of what occurs during those 7 sacred minutes after death contains the potential to revolutionize how we approach every moment of our lives. This final revelation isn't about death at all. It's about living with profound awareness and purpose. When we truly internalize that our consciousness will experience a complete life review, every choice we make takes on new significance. Imagine living with the understanding that you will not only remember, but re-experience every action, feeling its impact on others as if it were happening to you. How would this change your daily interactions? The harsh words spoken in anger, the kindness offered to a stranger, the time devoted to a child who needed your presence, all will be experienced again, not as memories, but as lived reality. Those who have returned from the threshold speak of a radical shift in priorities. Material possessions, professional titles, and social status, pursuits that consume so much of our energy, suddenly appear as fleeting distractions from what truly matters. Meanwhile, the quality of our relationships, our capacity for compassion, and our spiritual growth reveal themselves as the true measure of a life well lived. This understanding liberates us from the tyranny of superficial metrics. Success becomes defined not by what we accumulate, but by how much love we cultivate and share. Productivity is measured not in outputs, but in presence. Achievement is recognized not through external validation, but through internal alignment with our highest truth. Another profound transformation comes from understanding that we are not merely physical beings having occasional spiritual experiences, but spiritual beings having a temporary physical experience. This reversal of perspective changes everything. The body becomes a sacred vessel rather than our identity. Challenges become opportunities for soul growth rather than mere obstacles. Death transforms from an ending to be feared into a transition to be respected. The 7-minute journey also reveals that the barriers we perceive between ourselves and others are illusory. The profound interconnectedness experienced during this transition shows that we are individual expressions of a unified consciousness, like waves on the ocean, distinct yet made of the same essence. Living from this understanding naturally dissolves prejudice, hatred, and indifference to others' suffering, as we recognize that in the deepest sense, there are no others. Perhaps most liberating is what the 7-minute journey teaches us about time. In our earthly existence, we often live haunted by the past or anxious about the future, missing the only moment that truly exists, the present. But understanding that time is ultimately non-linear frees us to fully inhabit each moment with complete presence. We can release regret about the past and worry about the future, recognizing that our power to love, create, and transform exists only in the eternal now. This wisdom isn't meant to diminish the importance of our earthly journey, but to infuse it with deeper meaning. Our time in physical form provides unique opportunities for growth, service, and love that aren't possible in non-physical realms. Each challenge, relationship, and experience offers precisely what our souls need for evolution. The ancient mystery schools taught that we should live with the end in mind, not from a place of morbid preoccupation with death, but from the profound understanding that acknowledging our mortality brings clarity to our priorities. When we recognize that our time is finite, we naturally focus on what truly matters. The ultimate revelation of the 7-minute journey is that we don't need to wait for death to experience expanded consciousness. Through meditation, contemplative practice, and compassionate living, we can access aspects of this awareness while still in physical form. We can live from the perspective of our higher selves rather than our limited ego identities. This is the transformation that changes everything. Living each day with the awareness that we are eternal beings, having a meaningful but temporary human experience. Approaching each interaction with the knowledge that love is the only thing we take with us. Recognizing that our true purpose isn't accumulation or achievement, but awakening to our essential nature and helping others do the same. The 7 minutes after death reveal that the greatest spiritual practice isn't preparing for some future transition, but fully embodying our spiritual nature now. In this way, we don't merely prepare for a peaceful death, we create a more conscious, loving, and meaningful life. And in doing so, we discover that the boundary between living well and dying well ultimately dissolves, leaving only the eternal journey of consciousness itself. If this revelation about the 7-minute journey has touched your soul, don't let this moment pass. Subscribe now to continue receiving these profound spiritual insights that can transform your understanding of existence. Share your own experiences or thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective may be exactly what another seeker needs to hear on their journey. Remember, by sharing wisdom, we create a community of awakened souls walking this path together. Hit subscribe, leave your comment, and join us as we explore the deeper mysteries of consciousness that connect us all.